question here this week was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, and people sending questions via email to cornydrivethru@gmail.com. We'll try to get to yours next time. We're going to try to keep getting as many questions as possible on here.
Yeah, we're going to get as many questions as we can until we come up with an answer.
Jim, this one was sent in by Trent Whitney.
Oh, come on.
If Madison Square Garden had been built
What?
Oh, sorry, I'm sure it's a good question. Hold on. If Madison Square Garden had been built in Kansas City instead of New York City, would Harley have been able to capitalize on it?
What?
As much as Vince was able to? Or would the building have enticed Vern to Kansas City
What?
in lieu of Minneapolis?
What the fuck?
Or even Vince himself?
What?
We may not be able to end on that question.
Well,
I'm so sorry to laugh.
we may not be able to end on it, but I might finish all over it. Okay, where do I start? No, Vern wouldn't have come to Kansas City because Madison Square Garden was there, because they still wouldn't have been able to put fucking 20,000 people in the fucking building in Kansas City for a wrestling match, whatever building it was. Kansas City never drew 20,000 people. It's probably not going to. And secondly, would Vince have come to Kansas? It's not about the building. It's about your product and the town you're running. And yes, Madison Square Garden is the world's most famous arena because it's in New York, which is one of the world's most famous places. And it was one of the biggest arenas. There's been 4 of them. But at each point, it was one of the biggest arenas in the country. And in a major media market, a lot of shit goes on there. But just because you took Madison Square Garden and put it into fucking downtown Tucson doesn't mean that suddenly 20,000 people are going to start coming to wrestling in Tucson. Have I articulated that as plainly as I can? Brian, it's not that. And Kansas City Kemper Arena holds, I believe, or held, it might not be there anymore, but in the 80s, held probably 16,000 people, but they weren't running it out of the fucking Heart of America wrestling office with Bulldog Bob Brown and Bob Geigel in charge.
Bob Geigel often said, if I only had Madison Square Garden.
If I only had the garden. Then I could make Kansas City the hub of wrestling. But,
oh my God, it would have been a wrestling war if Vern and Vince, if everyone just descended upon Kansas City to get the garden.
Run every week. And here's another thing. You know where the other Madison Square Garden is, don't you?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. They have a building named Madison Square Garden, and they had wrestling in it. It didn't draw 20,000 people.
All right, well, our final question here this week. And thank you for sending your question, Trent.
Yeah, now that we've taken all the piss out of you, Trent.
There's